Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you a simple tutorial on how to paint a simple watercolor Christmas wreath. So for this video, you're just going to need a few supplies. You'll need a few watercolors, brushes, and watercolor paper. So I'm going to be sharing with you all of my recommendations and I'll show you exactly how I make this wreath. Alright, so let's get started with the supplies that I use. I typically use Winsor and Newton watercolors. They're really nice quality. This first one is an olive green. Second one is sap green. And then the third one that I'm using today is called alizarin crimson. I've also got watercolor paper. In this video, I'm using Canson cold pressed watercolor paper. This is very nice quality and works really well for a lot of different types of watercolor projects. Then I also am using the Princeton Heritage Round Brush, size 3. And I'll be linking all these things below. All right, so I've got water to rinse off my brushes and to use for mixing the paints. I have the two colors of green and the red paint, and I'm going to demonstrate for you each element that we're going to be using today in the video. So this first one is a simple pine branch. For this one, I'm using sap green. And as you can see, I'm just pulling the brush away from myself to create each stroke. So you create the long stroke and then the small pine needles coming out from it. So that's our first element. All right, for the second element, I'm going to be using olive green. We're going to be painting just a simple leaf here. So I'm picking up the paint. And then as you can see, I pull the brush away from me again to create one side of the leaf. And then for the other side of the leaf, I'm going to put down pressure and then lift up and pull away from myself to create the other side of the leaf. Now you can leave this space open in the middle, or you can fill it in, just whatever your preference is. All right, for the third element, we're going to be creating a soft pine branch. I'm going to be using sap green again for this one. And you'll pull away from yourself quickly with a quick stroke, releasing pressure as you move away. Pick up extra paint as needed. And all of the pine needles are going to be coming out from one central point. And that'll create this soft pine look. These pine needles are also longer. And then I also, to add extra dimension on all of these elements, I usually at the end pick up a little bit of extra paint and then put it into the wet paint. This is called wet on wet technique, and it just adds some extra color and dimension to the leaves. All right, for this last fourth element, I'm going to be showing you the berries. So this is the alizarin crimson color. And I just paint in a circular motion. I try to leave a little bit of white space to create some extra dimension. And then again, I can pick up some extra paint and add it to darken one side of the berry. And also if it ends up being too dark, you can pick up the paint to create to lighten it up as well. So these are our 4 elements. And we're going to use all these 4 elements to create this watercolor wreath. All right, so here I'm just creating a circle to begin the wreath process. And as you can see, I'm not very high tech here. I'm just using my painter's tape because it's a size that I like. But you can use any circular object to create a circle and just take a pencil and trace around it, and you'll have that basic shape to start your wreath with. So we're going to begin by creating some of these basic strokes, and all of them are going to start from the base of that wreath, that circle that you drew. So first of all, I'm going to pick up that sap green color, and we're going to create that soft pine branch look. So remember to start the pine needles from the circle, and just pull the brush away from yourself with some and release pressure as you pull away. And then you can also go back in and add some extra color using the wet on wet. So you pick up some extra paint with your brush and then add it to the paint that's still wet, and that darkness will add some extra dimension, and it'll also end up bleeding a little bit into the rest of the leaves, which will look really nice and add some dimension to that. So next, we'll go on and create some of those classic smaller pine needles. So again, I'm using sap green for this. I pick up some paint. Then remember, you're going to pull the brush away from you and create that first stroke. And then from that one, you're going to just create very small pine needles coming out from that main one. And again, I just pull the brush away from myself with a quick stroke. If you need to pick up some extra paint along the way, go ahead and do that. And then usually from this pine branch, I usually create one or two other small pine branches coming out. So again, you'll create that main stem and then small pine needles coming out from that. And then I'll go back in and add a little bit of extra dimension again. Just pick up some more paint and then add a little bit of it into the paint that's still wet. All right, so finally we're going to do a few berries here. So pick up some of that red paint. And then you're going to paint in a circular motion to create these berries. And I'm going to be grouping these for the most part in groups of 3, just because that gives it some nice balance. And then when I'm painting the berries, and just in general too, if I feel that it's a bit too dark, then I will add a little bit of water to the paint and then dry my brush and actually pick up some of that extra paint to lighten up the berry. And you can see me doing that right here. And then if your berry is too light, just add a little bit of extra paint and let it bleed into the wet paint to darken the berry. And now for this final element, I'm just going to add the simple leaves in olive green. So to create these leaves, I put some pressure down and pull away from myself towards the point of the leaf. And then I go back in and fill in if there's space in the inside, or you can leave it open depending on your preference. And then while the paint is still wet, I pick up some extra olive green paint and then put it into kind of the point and the end of both leaves just to add some extra dimension, and that paint will bleed in and add some nice color. All right, so from here on out, I'm just going to be continuing these 4 elements all the way around. So I'm going to follow kind of this basic order, starting with the soft pine leaf, then the simple pine branches, then the berries, and then going back in and filling in some of that empty space with the simple leaves. So I'll speed this up for you here. You could just watch how I fill in this wreath and enjoy. Now, if you'd like to add an additional element to your wreath, you can add some calligraphy inside of it. And right here, I'm doing faux calligraphy. So I'm tracing the letters Mary with my pencil to get a basic shape of what I want. And then I'm going to go back in with a Sakura Pigma graphic pen and trace over that and do some faux calligraphy to add a nice element inside of this wreath. Now, if you'd like to add faux calligraphy to your wreath, I have a whole YouTube video on how to do that. I'll be linking it below, and as well as at the end of this video, you can actually click on that video to watch it. And I also have a free faux calligraphy worksheet, and you can click on the link that I have added below for that as well. And you can subscribe to my newsletter, and then you'll receive a free download to practice the full lowercase alphabet in faux calligraphy. So those are the basics of creating this simple watercolor Christmas wreath, as well as how to add some faux calligraphy inside if you would like to do that. Thanks so much for watching, and remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel to see more videos on calligraphy, watercolor, and running a creative biz.